Scientific innovation is underpinned by scientific research, which in almost every nation is funded as a public good by government. Funding is granted to universities and to public research institutes in order to support research as a primary input of innovation. If you were to ask most scientists, few would know that the historical origins for the support of scientific research arose from economic theory. The story of economics over the 19th and 20th centuries is a story about the eminent academic economists and their different approaches. Names such as David Ricardo, Milton Friedman, Frederick von Hayek, and Maynard Keynes all come to mind, among many others. Economists at this time subscribed to what is known as neoclassical economic theory. These were prescriptive models that were used to study the interaction of factors affecting economic productivity and growth. These models typically involved a theoretical closed system that sought an idealized equilibrium between supply on the one hand and demand on the other. For many years, a nation's economic growth was viewed as dependent on the interaction between available capital, labour, and lastly, technology, with most models considering technology as what they called an exogenous factor, acting outside of the models. For a fixed amount of capital and labour and a static technology, economic growth eventually slows and stops as production approaches an equilibrium. Once such a steady state is reached, exogenous factors such as a new transformative technology is then required to stimulate growth. The economist Robert Solow proposed a growth accounting method in 1956 that predicted long-term growth and convergence to this steady state equilibrium that took account of capital accumulation on the one hand, labour, which included population growth, and in particular, increases in the productivity due to technological progress. Solow used a regression model to demonstrate that as little as 1/8 of the growth in the US economy over a 40-year period was accounted for by labour productivity and capital accumulation. The rest was accounted for by technological change, the application of new knowledge. Since scientific research delivers knowledge and technology, researchers have been considered essential for economic growth. Solow's model brought technological change and the importance of knowledge production into the mainstream. The orthodox neoclassical theory, with its relatively simple assumptions about how economies behave, remained actually unchallenged for over 30 years, prior, that is, to the financial debacle of 2008. For some, though, serious questions were already being asked about the rather simplistic, lack of reality approach that was embodied in this neoclassical economic theory, and some economists began rethinking the foundations of economic theory. One of those areas of economic thinking was called evolutionary economics, and it challenges the theoretical need for this steady state equilibrium. And it was inspired by a lot of the work in the 1940s by the economist Joseph Schumpeter. Schumpeter viewed an economy as always being in a state of dynamic disequilibrium, forever changing and growing. He viewed the central problem of economics not one of equilibrium, but one of a dynamic and continuous structural change, of restructuring. For Schumpeter, technological change enabled a process of reallocation of capital from the old and inefficient and obsolete production systems to be invested in new, more efficient and productive processes, an ever-changing state of development and growth, a process that Schumpeter called creative destruction. Joseph Schumpeter understood that the architect of this creative destruction was the entrepreneur. So we see that one economic approach of neoclassical economic theory that has dominated policy decisions for decades emphasizes technological change through investment in research to deliver steady state economics, and another, Schumpeterian economics, which argues for the case of disequilibrium and creative destruction generated by entrepreneurs. Hence we have two fundamentally different approaches. These different approaches have influenced how we view, measure, allocate inputs, and provide training to deliver innovation, and the subsequent conditions we create for it to thrive or not. These differences are significant, and the predominant neoclassic economics has actually limited how we are able to deliver innovation. This is a subject to which we will return later.